Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Jay Boersma, and Tana Boersma is my wife. We're with Neighborhood Capital Resources, and I'm going to introduce Damian Lupo to you. Damian and I have known each other since 1997, and we were both in our 20s then. I was closer to the end of my 20s, and he was probably barely 20. But so we've known each other a lot of years. We've done a lot of business together, starting in the real estate business and mortgage lending business. Damian's done a lot of other things business-wise, and I've stuck with real estate and mortgage lending, but we're going to just turn it over to Damian. Damian is the founder of EQRP along with other businesses, and tonight he's going to be talking to us about self-directed IRAs and qualified retirement plans. And I hope that's a good introduction. Damian, please take it away.
All right, sounds good. Good to be with you guys. I'm going to share a little bit about some options for using retirement money to be able to invest in real estate. But like Jay said, I'm the founder of EQRP, and this is a company that helps people set up retirement accounts, self-directed IRAs, and individual 401ks to basically help you guys get control of your retirement money and do things outside of Wall Street, maximize control of your investments, and give you a lot more choices. So we're going to go into what that is, what you can do with it, and then answer some questions about how it might pertain to you guys specifically. So first off, the difference between EQRP and traditional retirement systems is really that most of your IRAs and 401ks that you guys might have are really limited to what you can invest in, mutual funds, stocks, and you can do that stuff with an EQRP. But when you have an EQRP, it gives you this container, if you will, this vehicle where you can do all sorts of things like syndications, apartments, all sorts of things, any type of private equity, precious metals, crypto, private placements, almost anything you can imagine. And that's the power and control that really you're not told you can have because Wall Street wants to keep your money trapped. And this is a way for you guys to have control of it and do a lot more things and probably ultimately end up with a lot bigger portfolio because you have bigger control and some of the things that you've seen with Jay and Tana give you a lot more opportunities for upside than maybe just an S&P 500 mutual fund. So there's a couple of different things that we can do and that you'll have an option for. One is a self-directed IRA with an LLC, and basically this is something that anybody can get. If you have a Social Security number, you're eligible to have this, and it gives you the ability to invest in the alternative assets. Really, it's a full checkbook control, which is important because if you guys are looking at some type of investment, some type of real estate investment syndication, and it's time sensitive, the last thing you want to do is try to figure out how to get control of your money, and you're waiting around for a custodian. With this type of structure, you have the ability to invest, and you can invest in 5 minutes by writing a check. Similar thing with the solo 401k. This is the structure that EQRP is known for, and this gives you guys the ability to invest. One of the things is it allows you to put a ton more money, like 10 times more money each year into the retirement account if you have some type of self-employment income. And it gives you the ability to avoid something called UDFI. Really important with real estate because a lot of times real estate, in fact, most of the time, has debt. And if you have debt and there's a gain you have returns, there can be a tax that gets applied to IRA investors, but the solo 401ks that are invested are exempt from it. So it may be that this is more of the path that we want to take, and we can talk about whether and how you can qualify for it. But ultimately, most of the people end up using the solo 401k EQRP because it does give them the ability to have control of the investing with a checkbook and without the UBIT or the UDFI tax problem. So people ask, well, if this sounds pretty good, but what can I do and what can't I do? Really, you can do anything you want to other than a few prohibited transactions. And the IRS is kind of funny. They say, here's the list of things you can't do. It's really anything that you personally invested, that you benefit from. So you couldn't invest in a lake house that you wanted to go spend the summer in. That would be considered prohibited and disqualified. You also can't invest in any type of collectibles. So people sometimes think they want to invest in rare carpets or rugs or specific collectible coins. Those are prohibited. Almost anything else is allowed. So that just gives you this whole world of opportunity for things that are more interesting than maybe a mutual fund. One other thing I'll say before we go into this slide is that if you're investing in something, you're like a piece of real estate, it needs to be something that you're not actively managing. Now, if you were to do something with Jay and Tana and their group, and it was passive, that would qualify. But if it was a rental property that you were doing the rehab on, that's something that you could not do. So just keep that in mind. If you're thinking, hey, this is great, I want to do an Airbnb that I'm managing, not something you can do, but you could literally have somebody else manage it and it would qualify. And we can talk about specifics that apply to you guys for things that you might be thinking about. All right, so if so far you're thinking this might be kind of cool, one of the reasons you're thinking this could be cool is because there are huge tax benefits. The biggest one is that you can be tax-free forever, meaning you can grow your money tax-free inside of this and then spend it tax-free when you take it out. There's no other vehicle that exists on planet Earth that I'm aware of where you can grow money and then take it out and spend it tax-free, and there's no catch up. There's no something event down the road that triggers you having to write a check for taxes. It's a pretty cool thing, and right now it's available in the tax code. I don't think that'll be there forever. I think the Roth retirement account is probably something that will go away inside of it the next 10 years. And then probably what will happen is it'll be the people that already have it will be grandfathered. And what that means is there's a time sensitive nature to doing something where you set something up to put yourself in the tax-free zone, because ultimately we can guess what the tax code is going to say down the road. We can guess what the tax rates are going to be. But the best thing is to lock yourself in at zero tax for the rest of your life. And that's what a Roth EQRP will do. So to get money into a retirement account, an EQRP or a self-directed IRA, you either have to have an existing IRA or a 401k, some type of retirement account. And if you do, the process is fairly simple. We can roll those over. It takes a week and a half. And then they're in your self-directed account and you have control of your money. At that point, all of your options are on the table. You can send out wires, you can invest in things, and then you have support from our team and have the ability to invest in really anything you want. Another option for many of you that have self-employment income is to contribute money into a retirement account. And you can do that this year, and going forward, it's 70,000+ per person. So it gives you a lot of options to start shielding money from income taxes. So that's something to consider and look into. And that both the IRA and the solo 401k EQRP create those options. One is just a larger amount you can contribute, but ultimately they both give you the ability to invest how you'd like to and do it in a tax shelter. So the EQRP system is a bit different than other things that are out there. Probably a lot of you have seen self-directed IRAs or even solo 401ks at companies like Schwab. And the big difference here is that we've created an environment it's a learning library. It's a place where our community works together. Not only are you learning from other people, but you're connecting with other people. There's several thousand people that are part of the community that have EQRPs. And this is where you find people like you in a large way, and you can collaborate together, learn together. And oftentimes there's opportunities to be able to do things together. So this is a bit different. You're not just given a checkbook and wished well, hope this works out for you, but it's really about building up your network, which we know now the power and the value in your portfolio has more and more to do with your network than it does the dollars in the bank. And this is a built-in network. Once you're a part of the EQRP community, you have thousands of people that you can dial into and connect with online that it's simply not available to the general public. So it's a fairly exclusive club, and we've found that a lot of our people end up doing things together, and it's a place where you realize you've got people like you that are out there and you don't feel like you're on your own. That often has been the case for me in the past, and seeing people where everybody feels like they're kind of doing their own thing. And this is a great place for you guys to build bonds. And same thing with the community that Jay and Tana have put together. It's bringing people together. There's more power together than there is on our own. So to set up an EQRP, there's two costs to do it. One is a setup, and then one's an annual. And the setup builds the plans, sets up the bank accounts, helps you get your money rolled over. And you can either set that up by paying in full and then using money in your retirement account to be able to pay for it, to reimburse it, or you can do a 20% down payment and then pay the rest when you roll over your funds. Because Jay and Tana are part of our community and ambassadors, you guys have you have $1,000 discount, so that does give you, and that's not available to the general public. It's only because you're a part of the community. And then there's an annual cost of $8.95 that covers all of your IRS filings. This allows you guys to know what's coming. There's not a percentage fee. A lot of IRAs have percentage fees of your assets, and we've seen people have $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a year fees, which add up, and ideally you want to eliminate those. And then this gives you unlimited ability to do transactions. You have direct line to people, not just bots, not just FAQs, but you have the ability to be a part of a community and network, and ultimately even have some incentive programs for referring other people and sharing what you're doing. So very straightforward, no big mystery, no smoke behind or no curtain that you have to figure out. How does this actually work? Very straightforward, and people find that the transparency is exactly the kind of thing that they want to do and they want to have with any type of company they're working with. And there you go. That's the quick and dirty. We can answer y'all's questions, but that kind of gives you the EQRP and self-directed retirement investing in a nutshell, so you have a sense of another option out there to be able to use the retirement money that oftentimes many people have found is really just it's kind of this orphan. It's out there, and it's money. It's almost like that money's out there, but I can't do anything with it. It's just sort of stuck. There's literally trillions of dollars that's stuck, and if you guys have that type of money, you now have a way to be able to do something with it that's a lot more powerful and in your hands, in your control, with people that you know. So that's what I'd love to help you guys with, and happy to answer any questions.
So I definitely have a handful of questions. I'm going to try to present them in an organized manner and not confuse things. But before I do that, Damian, so you put some things up there about EQRP, but how would someone contact EQRP?
Best thing to do is either call us directly or email us. You can email me directly, Damian@eqrp.com. And so that's the best way to go. You can also reach out directly. I'm going to give you guys all my cell phone, because if you're friends with Jay and Tana, you should have access to real people, and I'll give you my real phone number, and you can share this with people if you want. It's 512-557-8321. That's my cell phone number. So please don't post that on Facebook, but I wanted to give you guys access to it.
Thanks. So my first question is, I'm thinking of the person who is a high wage earner. So we have passive investors that we partner with. Some of them are self-employed, and I'll get to asking about an example of that type of person secondly. But primarily, most of our passive partners are high wage earners with W-2 jobs that are probably contributing to their 401k. And so what does it look like for someone who's doing that? Is it just the excess dollars that they would have to invest that they could bring into what would they bring that into through EQRP?
So typically what we found with high income earners is that they typically, and working for companies with 401ks or 457s, 403bs, what happens is they typically have some type of retirement account or retirement accounts that are scattered from previous employment. It's rare, more and more rare that people have the same job or the same company for 20, 30, 40 years. They tend to have different opportunities. So what happens is why high income earners tend to be able to consolidate those past retirement accounts into an EQRP or an IRA. And then sometimes we have people that are high income earners that maybe have side things. They do consulting, and all that 1099 income can be used and contributed into retirement accounts to shield from taxes, and then be able to control and invest in things like real estate. So it's very specific to people. Most people don't realize they have options for old money as well as contributing new money. And so we do a deep dive on anybody that comes in and says, okay, I'm curious about this, but I don't know how I qualify or what money qualifies. It's kind of like when you do taxes and people have a question, is this a tax write-off? And the smart accountant says, it depends. And it's really the same thing. There's a lot of options here. We just have to get into the nitty-gritty for each person and figure out how it applies to them.
Okay, and so the choices are IRA or solo 401k. Is that right?
Yeah. And the IRA is available, the individual retirement account. That's available to anybody. There's no qualification other than you have a social security number. The solo 401k, you have to have some type of business activity. So that could be as simple as being an online, doing something online where you have the potential to make some $50 a year. You could have a lemonade stand. You could be a consultant. You could be a doctor that worked at a hospital getting 1099 income. It's virtually everybody has a very simple path to qualifying for that. So they're both on the table. It kind of depends. Sometimes there are certain types of IRAs that can be only rolled into an IRA. So it goes back to what do you have, what are you working with, what are you trying to accomplish, and then we customize whatever you need based on where you are and where you're going.
And so either way, both of these vehicles would be considered self-directed. I didn't hear you use that terminology much, the self-directed part, but that's what we hear a lot in daily use is self-directed. So these are self-directed vehicles, is that right?
Yeah, these are self-directed. You have the control. You have the checkbook. You get to choose. You as the investor, it's your money. You don't have to get permission from anybody. You just write a check. If you have something you want to invest in, you write the check and you're off to the races.
So there was an area in your talk where you were talking about solo 401k, and you were saying that it was the only way, the only vehicle on planet Earth that you know of. And I think you said that you can take the money and take money out of it and use it without being taxed. Is that what you said?
Yeah. So the Roth retirement account. This is both a Roth IRA and a Roth 401k. Both have the ability to remove taxes completely. The unique thing about a Roth solo 401k or a Roth EQRP, which is very similar, is that you not only can you have money growing inside of this and then take it out to spend down the road, but you also have the ability to leverage it. So for example, let's say you had $100,000 in your Roth EQRP retirement account, and then you went out and you invested in a piece of property that had $1 million of debt. Your 100,000 could potentially turn into millions of dollars because of the leverage, and you get to keep all of that, and all of it's tax free. So that's where this is. There is no better tool that's out there, and I would put this head to head with anything out there, from life insurance to real estate directly, like just personally buying in real estate. This is the best hack that's out there on planet Earth. At least if you're in the U.S. For other countries, I'm sure there's other things, but the U.S. based folks, this is like the hack to go to zero tax.
Okay, so we're talking about zero tax, but I thought there was an element of simply taking the money and spending it, not investing it out of your Roth 401k.
So if you have money in your Roth 401k, if you're 59 and a half, you're generally able to take that and spend it immediately, whether or not you're investing it, if it's in there. So there's the ability to do that. What I'm suggesting is that if you're talking about investing in investable assets and trying to figure out how you're going to get to zero tax, this is the best tool to do it. So probably a different conversation for people that want to spend money immediately. But going down the road when you're building up your investable assets and then thinking about in your retirement what that's going to look like, how you go to zero tax. Because typical 401ks and IRAs, you build up a bunch of money and then you pull it out when you're 60 years old and you have a big tax bill because you're taxed at ordinary income tax. The goal here is to get that down to zero, and this is the only way I know to do that permanently.
So does that mean that you can own assets, for example, real estate, or maybe even shares in a real estate syndication, for example, and when those assets sell, you don't pay tax on those. The proceeds and the gains on that come back into the solo 401k. And so there's no need for doing a 1031 exchange, for example.
Exactly. It simplifies the process. You don't really care whether there's like, if there's a big gain, that's great, and there's no tax bill. And that's usually what you see there. Sometimes that can happen with an IRA because of UBIT, the UBTI tax or UDFI. With a solo 401k EQRP, you can take that and exempt yourself out of that. It's a unique part of the tax code that takes you to zero and avoids that completely. So there is a reason that we encourage people to utilize that as opposed to an IRA, if at all possible. And we usually find a way to make it possible.
So I think this will be my last question, and not to get too far into the weeds. And so keep this simple, because I think you've explained it to me before, like 4 or 5 times, and you did a good job, but my memory is short and I don't actually remember. So I'm going to ask the question again, but it has to do with, you've mentioned UDFI and you've mentioned UBIT, and you frightened me a long time ago about UBIT. So I know there's something that I want to avoid there, but I don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah, so basically what happens is a lot of people have self-directed IRAs and they buy real estate using that money. And when they buy real estate, typically the real estate has debt. And this is, I mean, this is why we like real estate, because you can leverage cash using debt, and banks like to lend. If there's a profit, there's something called UDFI, unrelated debt financed income. So what the IRS is saying is, hey, you're already in a tax shelter. If you have debt to expand your profits, we're going to have a special tax called unrelated debt, UBTI, unrelated business income tax. And so when that happens, it can be a 37% tax on a big chunk of your gains inside of an IRA. You are exempt from that tax if you're using an EQRP. So sometimes people say, well, I have my IRA, a self-directed IRA, and that's invested in real estate, and we're about to sell the property. And I say, great, let's switch it from an IRA. So we roll it over, the asset, from an IRA into an EQRP. And once that happens, when that property sells, you're exempt from the tax. So there's lots of ways to fix this, but ultimately it's because of the leverage. The IRS, and ultimately the reason this happened, the reason that there's an exemption with the EQRP is because they had better lobbyists that were wanting to find a way to exempt themselves, and apparently the IRA companies didn't have the as good of lobbyists. So point is here is you can solve the problem, but if you don't have the right vehicle, you can have a sneaky little tax that you didn't even know was coming.
Well, I think the main point is that if anyone is interested in all of this, that they need to speak to an expert, and you and your team are the experts. I really appreciate you being with us this late afternoon, Damien. Any other closing comments?
I think it's just really important to get educated, and this is the first step. You can also go to qrpbook.com or eqrpbook.com and grab a copy of the book. We're happy to FedEx that out to you, and get yourself educated into the space. This tool has proven to be a really powerful way for people to build a lot of wealth over the years that I've been helping people with it all over the country. And it's one of those things where you're going to wish you'd set it up or done it a lot more, or even at all 10 or 20 years ago. But it's kind of like the old Chinese proverb, better to plant a tree 20 years ago. Next best time is today.
Right. Okay. Brother, thank you so much. Have a good evening. I'll circle back. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you, everybody.